This land calls out for hardy souls who like to blaze a trail. There are many exciting opportunities to rough it here in the Big Scrub. From ancient tribal people, the Timucuan, Mayacan, and Seminoles, to the early Spanish explorers in the 1500s, and the early settlers and crackers in the 1800s. Plenty of adventurers came here, drawn by the land, the water, and the wildlife. One of the area's unique modern adventurers was Ross Allen. He developed his Reptile Institute at Silver Springs in the 1930s. Today, Reptile Island at Silver Springs is named in his honor. He entertained crowds for years with his reptile shows, wrestling gators, milking snakes, all the things your mom told you not to do.
At one of our forest meetings, he came to it with a suitcase. You know what he had in the suitcase?
Right.
He just opened the suitcase and had about 4 or 5 rattlesnakes, and he'd take one out at a time.
Dana St. Clair is a local author who grew up in Ocala, and his father helped Ross Allen build the Boys Ranch just north of Silver Springs.
I learned a lot from some of the best. Ross Allen in particular taught me directly and indirectly how to survive in the Florida wilds. He had this passion for teaching survival.
If you have that adventurous spirit and are interested in off-road adventures, the trails, rivers, lakes, and forests here will provide you with a plethora of backwoods adventure.
Paisley Woods Trail is a 22-mile loop trail that actually starts down to Clearwater off of 42, Clearwater Recreation Area in the Ocala National Forest. And it goes all the way to Alexander Springs off of County Road 445, which is part of the Florida Black Bear Scenic Byway. The trail is designated with a yellow diamond, so you won't get lost. And the volunteer groups that operate it now, along with the Forest Service, do a tremendous job.
Our club has about 150 members. We're active in both the construction and the maintenance of trails, both on the greenways and now here in the Paisley Woods. We try to have monthly work days on all of the trails that we maintain, do routine trimming, stabilization of the soil when necessary. We have several folks who are chainsaw certified. If you are the first person out in the morning, you have a very good chance of being wrapped up in a nice sticky yellow web on a regular basis. And on most trails in this area seem to have a huge amount of the golden orb spider, which is the spider that we have on our jersey. Thankfully, they are not a venomous spider, so it's a little disconcerting at first, but after a while you get used to it.
No telling what you see on the Paisley Woods Trail. We see deer and bear and all kinds of wildlife, and it's quite a nice trail to ride in terms of nature. You're really out in the middle of nowhere, and get to see a lot of things, especially early in the morning or late in the evening. I was riding here from Alexander out at the West Loop, and noticed something beside me to my left, running beside me, and it turned out to be a black bear about 30 yards away. If you do encounter a bear, the main thing to do is just make sure they're aware that you're there. Raise your arms, talk to them, whistle, holler at them.
Mountain biking just gives you absolute greatest feeling of freedom. The difference between riding a mountain bike and riding a road bike is that you're not worried about your surroundings in the same way. It also gets you out away from all of the things that you deal with on a regular basis. And at the end of the day, it's nice to get out and concentrate on nothing but 15 feet in front of your tire for a couple hours while surrounded by nature. It's absolutely wonderful.
Jim Kern was the visionary behind the Florida Trail, now designated a National Scenic Trail. The 1,800-mile trail crosses the Byway a few times in the Ocala National Forest. With over 60 miles just in the Ocala, the trail provides plenty of adventure for hikers and backpackers.
In July 1961, I took my younger brother into hiking on the Appalachian Trail in Smoky Mountain National Park. Well, it turned out to be a disaster. We set off from Kingman's Dome late one afternoon, and in no time the clouds were coming through the forest. It was very hard to stay dry. Well, that was one huge problem. The other huge problem was that we came to the shelter much too soon. We couldn't stop, or we'd never get to Fontana Dam, which was our destination. This was going to be a 40-mile hike, and I naively thought that I could get there in less than 24 hours and sleep also, throw in a night's sleep. The whole thing was, you know, juvenile. So we had to keep going. We couldn't stop in the shelter, and we weren't going to make the next shelter before it was dark, and we had no flashlights. We just slept on the ground. And then the next morning, you know, stiff and aching and tired, we hiked on and stumbled out onto Fontana Dam just as it was turning totally dark. But anyway, that was the beginning, because I thought, well, maybe there's a long-distance trail in Florida. Maybe hiking could be fun if you did it right. And got back to Florida and discovered that no, there was no long-distance trail. So I said, okay, I'll start one. I was on the board of the local Tropical Audubon Society at the time, and there was a fellow on the board named McGregor Smith Jr., who was a writer for the Miami News at the time, later the Miami Herald. And so he was a nature lover, and so he decided to go along. We left the 40-mile bend on the Tamiami Trail and hiked north on this dike. Well, the dike ends about 10 or 15 miles north, and there's another dike that picks up about 5 miles beyond that. Well, how are we going to get across that? One of the agencies volunteered an airboat to pick us up and take us from the end of one dike to the beginning of the other dike. Well, McGregor Smith had such blisters by the time we got to the end of the first stretch of dike that he took the airboat opportunity to go back home and file his story instead of sending the story back with the airboat. So his sore feet with blisters were on the front page of the Miami Herald when they did a Sunday supplement. So I hiked on up into Clewiston alone, and then a scout troop and a friend from Miami joined me for a weekend hike around Lake Okeechobee. And then Ross Allen joined me at Palmdale, in the woods in Palmdale, where Fish Eating Creek crosses US Highway 27. And Ross and his two friends hiked with me for 3 days. Then I hiked the last couple of days into Highlands Hammock State Park. That was 160 miles. I did it in 12 days. That was the beginning. Through Ocala National Forest, you have a sea of sandpine and scrub oak dotted with islands of longleaf pine. Now, these two make a fascinating habitat. Wonderful country to hike through. Here and there through Ocala National Forest, you have lowlands that are filled with water in the summertime most of the year. And so those marshes add to the beauty of the sandpine scrub oak habitat, and together they make great hiking country. I love the longleaf pine islands because the longleaf pine are by nature scattered over the landscape and provide enough shade that there's not a big understory. So you can easily bushwhack or just cross country in a pine island. Often I get the comment from people, well, I wouldn't want to hike in Florida, there are too many mosquitoes and there's too much heat. And my answer is, I don't like mosquitoes and I don't like heat, and I'm not going to go hiking with mosquitoes and heat either. In short, our hiking season is exactly out of season with the rest of the country, which makes Florida very interesting. Our hiking season begins, let's say, December, and maybe in North Florida through April.